Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Lewis.
Welcome to the Rangers Journal.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Journal on this Thursday. I think it's at the 16th. 16th. My name is Doug. So you're watching Rangers Journal as always. Doing our usual regular Q&A session on a Thursday evening. Plenty still to talk about. With the up-to-date news being that Rangers are very much on the brink of announcing Kevin Muscat as our next manager. Word on the street currently is that as Shanghai Port have a game that they're playing tomorrow, Friday, that the apparently neither party wants to sort of be good, for lack of a better phrase, and announce it right on the eve of that game. So it would appear that we're assuming there are no last-minute hitches, which we know with Rangers there can always be, that announcement may well come either at the weekend or possibly on Monday once the Dundee United game is out of the way. So we'll be touching on that tonight. We'll probably talk about the weekend's game, and of course it is a Q&A, so we'll be taking all your questions as well. Joining me this evening, I've got three great guys, all raring to go and up for answering all your questions. First and foremost, I've got Stevie to either my left or right, depending on which way you want to look at it. How are you doing this evening, Stevie?
Evening, Doug. Evening, Mitch and Billy and everybody. I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, someone's doing too bad, thanks. And directly below me, because that's where I like him to be, is everyone's favourite man, exactly, eyebrows up, is Mitch. How are you doing, mate?
Well, the better for getting that fruity intro there, Doug.
I like that one.
He started the smart early.
That's it. And what I've already commented is a rather fetching and slightly unique top there is Billy J. How are you doing, mate?
Good. These aren't Rangers jammies, but looking forward to standing and warming our hands around the metaphorical bin fire that is the search for a new manager. Maybe toast some marshmallows while we're at it.
That'd be good. I haven't had toasted marshmallows in ages.
Can I just say, Billy, like, they are like the greatest Willy Winky 500 PJs that you've got on. You just need to be nightcap to go with it, mate.
I forgot. It's in the next room, but unfortunately, it's the wrong size. So it just looks silly.
Well, we can always count on a little bit of fashion here at the Rangers Journal, but not too much, and always in blue. But as I say, we'll kick it off this evening. I'll go around the houses and just get everyone's opinions on what would appear to be the imminent announcement in the next, as I say, probably weekend or possibly Monday, of Kevin Muscat. Stevie, have you been a fan of Muscat going on? Are you happy with this appointment?
Yeah, mate, I'm definitely happy. Yeah, I'm happy with this appointment. I probably wanted him 2 years ago before we got Clement, but looking back, it was probably the right guy at the wrong time. So I'm kind of glad it's not came off then, because this could be our silver lining. I think we're all kind of scunnered as a fan base with the amount of wrong decisions the club has made over the last however many years. Personally, I thought with the new ownership coming in the end of May, I thought finally we're going to see some proper governance and the club will be run better. And it's almost been the opposite. It's been such a shambles. So finally, I think this is the correct decision. I think this is a really good decision. So yeah, I'm quite excited, but I would kind of urge a wee bit of caution. This guy's not got a magic wand. You know, he's coming in. We're almost in November and we've won one league game. I mean, I've seen people say, can we still win the league this season? I'm like, I'm not even thinking about that. To me, a realistic target would be trying to win the Scottish Cup. That's something to aim for later on in the season once he's been in for a while and start to kind of change the way the team play. But everything I've seen from Muscat, you know, his CV is really good. You know, he's won pretty much everywhere he's been. He's improved teams, he's improved players. He's very pragmatic. And obviously, for his time as a player, he had a fair bit of metal about him. You know, he really does, you know, lead, I would say. And he's certainly a bit of a throwback when it comes to getting stuck into players, I think, as well. So pretty much everything that Rangers need. I wish we got him in the summer. Would have been much better in June, July time to be having this conversation. But ultimately, I think we are getting the right man.
Good stuff, good stuff. Billy, I'll come to you next. We've already had a few fashion-related comments. We've got Ross here, Clash of the Titans, Doug's cardigan versus Billy's PJs. So I'm going to suggest Billy will win on the fashion. I'll win on the warmth. And we've also had a question from Mick Billy, so no better way to open the questionnaire than asking where you got your delightful top from. It's always the fashion with you, Billy. You're obviously a fashionable guy.
Yeah, and it's never complimentary, so I don't think fashion's the term. And sad to disappoint everyone, they're not actually PJs. This is like a top going back to 150. So if you want to buy it, I would suggest like get a time machine first, or just go on eBay and look for Stripey Rangers top. But they aren't actually. I know everyone's probably visualising me in a onesie just now, as disturbing as that might be. But no, it's just a top. Sorry, guys. Moving on to football stuff, Muscat, he ticks most of the boxes of the candidates. There's lots of boxes he doesn't tick. And for me, Stevie said something that just really hit the nail on the head for me. It's like, like about being right guy, wrong time. I hope we are not sending Kevin Muscat into the same situation we've done with a number of managers now, which is basically one hand tied behind their back in a knife fight, because since we gave Beale that war chest and he misspent it, then we brought in a really good, like, seasoned European manager who won titles, but with like a lopsided, patchy squad. And then we punt him and we get in an experienced manager and let him spend all the money, and we've got another like patchy squad. We've got some promising looking players, and now we're doing the same thing. We're bringing in an experienced manager who hasn't had his own pre-season, who hasn't been involved in recruitment, and is now in a fight to try and get second place and win a cup, like Stevie says. I just wish at some point, and I thought the 49ers were the guys who would get it together, or would get the combination of a good, solid phase of recruitment and the right manager. And all of us saw that Russell Martin was unlikely to be that guy. And here we are again. And it just echoes the Clement situation for me. We're giving a good manager like a much more difficult hand, and we're asking him to firefight. So that's my big fear.
So then we'll get on to elaborate on some of those points, no doubt, in the hour that we have this evening. So finally, come down to yourself, Mitch. What's your thoughts on the, as I say, potential imminent income of Kevin Muscat?
I guess a clean slate for everybody, like all parties involved. It's a clean slate for the owners. And there is also a slight element, I think, from the owners of, well, you asked for either him or Stevie and we've delivered it. And it's well, do you know what? We gave you the option that you wanted. So if it goes Pete Tong, there is a finger that can be pointed back at us. Not saying that bulletproofs the owners, but essentially they've said, well, you called for them, we delivered them. But I think there's going to touch on the point there about the squad and stuff. The manager, from the current setup that we are set up under anyway, the recruitment the manager's not going to have much of an input in anyway. That's what Kevin Thelwell's job is with Dan Purdy and co. But I think as a squad, this is probably bar for bar the most athletic and probably technically gifted squad we've actually had for a long time. The problem's been for the last, 130 odd days now, since we appointed the vegetable. This squad haven't known what's been actually asked of them from day one on the pitch. And it's not that they're not fit. We can point a finger at guys like Rothwell, who just seems to be a really, really sweaty individual. But I think the squad itself, you break that down into different parts. There is enough young, promising talent. There's enough experienced talent and enough talent in that older stage of their career. When you look at the likes of Butland, when you look at the likes of Tavin there, you look at the likes of Suter coming into the prime years of his career now. There's enough experience to blend the youth, but also I think just now the only question mark I would probably still have on the squad is, are we a striker light? But I think every team, you ask any team up and down the country, what's the one part of your squad that you would change? Every team's going to say a 30-goal a season striker. But I think now the players have got a chance to actually prove and show who and what they are and why they were brought in. And it's also in a kind of sideway point. It's the making or breaking of Thelwell. Did you actually sign duds, or did you sign proper players that were in fact for the first portion of the season poorly managed and just didn't understand what they were doing?
Yep, a lot of good points there. I don't know anything else, but for some reason when you said striker light, I kind of could see that in like an 80s font, some kind of strange 80s product. You know, buy striker light. I don't know what it would be, but that's my question for the group chat. What would striker light be if it was a product? If you've got answers to that or any other questions, do put them in the comments. I have already started flagging questions that we'll go through this evening. So as I say, get your questions into us as well. If you're watching and you're not subscribed, then do think about subscribing to the channel as well. I wouldn't be doing my YouTube duty if I didn't throw that in nice and early. You can hit that notification button as well, and that will tell you when we go live, when we put up content, which is most days of the week. These days, we've got shows Monday to Friday. We do shows before and after matches at the weekends, and we'll pretty much go live any time that Rangers have exciting breaking news, which will include the announcement of the manager at some point, no doubt. So keep your eyes on that. One thing I wanted to touch on that I think has been a big talking point. It's already been mentioned in the comments. I think it was Ross has already kind of mentioned it at one point in the comments, and it's been sort of debated online as well. It's the potential that we may have to wait for Kevin Muscat to actually arrive following his announcement. To sort of deep dive into that a little bit, put together a little bit of information here about when he is likely to potentially come to the door. Obviously, it's been mooted that he won't come until November, but it could, in theory, be earlier than that if Shanghai win the league. Obviously, the suspicion is that he's going to want to stay and see through the season and finish off what is looking like it will be a title-winning year for him, which will obviously add to his CV even further. We've got the top four of the Chinese Super League there. You can see it's fairly tight across the four. Probably most realistically, though, it's only the top three that are fighting for it. Shanghai would have to have a total collapse and lose every match from now until the end of the season for Beijing Guan to get into it. So I'm kind of counting them out, but the rest are in there. The earliest he can win is match day 28, which for them is 2 games time. They're currently at match day 26, so he could have the title wrapped up by the 26th of October. So that would be obviously a couple of weeks time, and then the latest is the very end of the season if they collapse in between now and then and sort of limp to the end. They are in a reasonably good place, and so that's probably unlikely. Based on their form, the most likely scenario is that they'll wrap up the title on match day 29, based on their current match, points per match. If that continues, that average carries on, then they will win it in a couple of matches' time, which would be the 31st of October.
Happy Halloween.
Exactly. Sort of went through and simulated every possible result for the top three, every combination of results that the top three could have, which is 81 different outcomes. And the earliest possible win in there in match 28 occurred in 9 out of the 81 scenarios. The title win on match day 29 occurred in 60 of the 81 scenarios, and the final day title win occurred in 12 of the 81 scenarios. So that's sort of based just on the average points per match. You can do something called a Monte Carlo simulation, which I have done as well for this, where basically you run, includes not just the points per scenario, but we've looked at their home and away form of the teams, which matches they've got left and against who, and whether they're home and away, and factoring in all those things, and then run scenarios on those games, basically 100,000 times to get a massive data set to try and get what is more accurate an outcome. And the outcome of that was that it would be a final day win, 78% chance. So basically what all of that bump and math and boring stuff that those of you that aren't at the stats won't care about basically means is there's a good chance that we're going to be waiting for him into November. So I say the final day is the 22nd of November. So I say that's the potential. Now we don't know this for certain. It could be announced and arrive straight away, but as I say, that appears to be what all the rumor and the conjecture is. So I'm going to come around the houses again, guys, and just sort of get your thoughts on that. I'll kick it off with my own thoughts. I personally am not a fan of this idea. I understand one of the things, I think it was Ross's comments in the chat where he said that I think I started it, let me bring it up. Yeah. So Ross has said, whilst I get the anger, that we want him in now. Does him staying and finishing the season not say something about his character? So I think that's kind of the crux of the argument, really, is that you can look at it in two ways. It's a bonus to his character that he wants to stay sort of loyal to his team and see things to the end. So that's, obviously a plus in terms of the character of the man. But then the opposing point to that is we don't care about Shanghai Port. We care about Rangers. So ideally, you should be in here day one. You should want him to be committed to us from day one. And so you've got those kind of two, and I think they are fair points on both sides, but at loggerheads. I personally am not a fan of it, as I say, just because, I want him in day one, and 1 or 2 weeks would be fine. I wouldn't be bothered by that, but 6 weeks is a long time to wait. There's 15 to 19 points available in that time in the league, which could put us out of the league. We've got a semi-final against Celtic in the Cup, which if we lose, we could be out of Cup. And we'll have played at least another 2, I think 3 European games by then. So we could be out of Europe, basically, by that point. So by the time between when he signs and when he actually arrives, he could be out of 3 out of 4 competitions, which is a massive risk, unless we're happy and saying we're just going to write this season off. So starting with yourself, Stevie, obviously quite a few points there to sort of consider. What's your sort of stance on this whole potentially waiting on him?
I agree with Ross. I'm fine with him finishing his contract, winning the league with his team over there. Because a couple of years down the line, if all goes to plan, this guy comes in and he's successful and he wins us 56. Rangers are the Shanghai for like a team down south, and they say somebody comes knocking at our door saying we want Kevin Muscat 4 games before the end of the season and we're going for a title. Can you imagine the meltdown? So, I think you need to respect the guy's contract, the job he's done. He's obviously a very decent man, the fact that he wants to finish the job that he started. To me, it makes absolutely fine. It makes sense to me that he finishes up. Just going back in time a wee bit, I remember Souness, or I don't remember it, but I remember my dad telling me when Souness left Rangers, we only had about half a dozen games to go in that season, and we're neck and neck with Aberdeen. They basically left Walter Smith right in it. And that really, people talk about Gerrard leaving Rangers. Look at Souness left Rangers. You know what I mean? He left when it was really vital, and Walter had to pull it together. Well, a lot of pressure on him, so no, I'm fine with it. I see your point. It would be good if he could come in right now. But you mentioned the league. Realistically, to me, the league's gone. This guy's got to come in and change the entire character of this squad, and he's now got a pre-season. To me, this is like a 3-year. He's going to get a 3.5 year contract, I think. And to me, I'm giving him the 3 years because we've been through manager after manager in pretty terrible situations. This guy needs the time, and everybody as a fan base needs to be patient. I've seen the argument that, why should they get extra? Why should they get time to beat the likes of Falkirk and whoever, regular when you've got 10 times the budget? Yeah, but you're basing that on standards with Rangers way back, 90s, or even Walter's second spell, Alex McLeish, stick advocate, when Rangers standards were so high. We've not had that, bar Gerrard, for a long time. So this guy's got to completely change the culture of Rangers, get that winning mentality back, and it does not happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a few months. It's going to take a couple of years, hopefully, to get back to where we were. So that's a really long-winded answer, but yeah, short answer, I'm fine with him, finish his contract and join us at the start of December.
Good stuff. And Billy, what about yourself?
I mean, I've got all these reservations about Muscat, full stop, and the timing's one of them. But you can't fault him for seeing out his contract when he's in a title race, like Stevie was saying. Someone in the chat had made a good point, which is, he's been in the running for the Rangers job a couple of times and hasn't been the first choice candidate. So us expecting him to drop everything when we are finally interested and Steven Gerrard's walked away would be a bit rich. Just to pick up on something Stevie was saying, the situation is actually a bit different with Souness. Souness wanted to stay to the end of the season, but David Murray, back when he used to make good decisions, told him to get, and presumably knew that he had Watty in the background. At that point, had been assistant manager at McLean and been robbed of a European Cup final in Rome. So slightly different situation. I just think it shows that the 49ers have made such a howling mess of the start of the season that we are now effectively writing off almost the entire season in some ways, because you could see us if Steven Gerrard had rocked up a week ago, you could see us getting back into Europa League contention because we've got 6 games still to go. You could have seen us maybe putting a wee run in the league, maybe, like trying to climb up or narrow the gap. And you could have seen us, going on a run in the Scottish Cup. Now you're talking about Kevin Muscat coming in, like Stevie says, having to change the culture, he hasn't had a pre-season, he doesn't know the players, they're not his players. And we're going to have 2 more Europa League games gone. So carrying on the same trajectory, we could be out there running in that. 3 wins would probably get you there, but you're into sort of squeaky bum time. You've got another 5 league games. You've got the cup semi-final. That's a big decision to write off that chunk of the season, because then you are potentially in an almighty race to just try and get second. Yeah, I just think it speaks to how badly they've done things at the start of the season, and I just have that niggling thing that we're going to, by the end of the season, some fans are going to start judging Kevin Muscat, even though similar to what they did with Clement, even though it's not his squad and he hasn't really had a chance to put his marker down, he would need to get second, ideally win the cup. Which you'll know this, Doug, but is the cup now the route into Europa League, or is it going to become that in the next year or two? Because second place is going to get you Conference League now, so the cup actually becomes really important. It's difficult to get motivated, because if you're getting told the new guy's going to be in 6 weeks, and that's 6 weeks of Stevie Smith and or Neil McCann, no harm to those guys who are stepping up, but we could be out of the running in 3 competitions by then.
Absolutely. As I say, that's one of my primary concerns as well. What about you, Mitch? Which side of the axe do you fall?
As always, I sit in a measured level of defence, and I have done since day one with the managerial search of, till there's a scarf, there's nothing. But if it happens to be Muscat, there's not. I'm not going to lie, I'm quite angry at the prospect of, we're buying out his contract. We are paying Shanghai $1.5 million, if the rumours are true, to buy out his contract to bring him over. So why are we allowing Shanghai and him to dictate when he arrives to Rangers? I understand the sporting element of that, but there's a business element of that, where we are paying a severance package for him and the coaching staff that come. So as such, he should be treated as an employee of the club, of get your arse to work or don't take the job. Pick one. You can't be both. I have every faith that he's going to be the right kind of manager for us just now. I think, especially for a lot of the younger players in there that need structure, because he's very big on structure, very big on organisation. He's not also just this gung-ho manager that people think that he is either. He's quite measured in what he does. He will change things tactically in game. He will change personnel in game. He'll change the shape of the team in game. But I think, given the mess that our season's been in, and this should have been stressed during the interview process, look, the opening couple of months of this season have been dug meat. There's no other way to really put it. So when you agree to take this job as the manager, which you will be handsomely paid for, because again, it's a pretty well-paid job, let's be honest, with then on top of that salary, you'll have your signing on bonus, you'll have the severance package that we've just paid to your current employer. So why the hell are we being told that we need to wait up to 6 weeks for you to start work? That irritates me genuinely. Under no other business would that be allowed to happen. If we left our jobs today and put our notice in, the chances are we'd be put on garden leave for a few weeks. Or you'd be told, right, you're working your notice, so for 4 weeks you're basically dilly-dallying about. But when £1.5 million, again, if that is a correct figure, is being paid to take someone from employer A to come and be an employee of our club, that's a hell of a lot of money. Like £1.5 million, I get in football, it's not exactly a huge amount of money. But in the grand scheme of things, £1.5 million is £1.5 million. You don't just pull that out the back of the couch. And that genuinely irritates me, because from a player perspective, as everybody's touched on, there's a semi-final. There's 2 or 3 European games in there. There's a league game to get. There's a league game. There's a league to get back on track at the very least. Nobody's saying that we're going to pull ourselves into a title race. Could we do that? Let's see what the next few months looks like. Domestically, I think we're all of the approach of let's just cross bridges when we get there. Let's get a run of games under our belt, a few victories. We'll talk about that if the other side or Hearts or whatever start dropping points. We'll talk about that conversation when that conversation's there to be had. Right now, the whole setup needs somebody to come in and grab it by the scruff of the neck and say, right, great what you're doing in Shanghai. Sorry, but either you take the job now and we've agreed the severance, or you don't take the job because we're not, and I really swore there, I had to stop myself for a minute. We're not waiting about, we're not waiting about like a jilted groomsman at the altar where we say, are you going to turn up down the aisle in 6 weeks' time? That genuinely irritates me because it's business.
That's another good point on it there. A lot of people in the comments agreeing with you as well. Not too many, so we don't want to give Mitch a bigger head than he already has. That will be dangerous for us all. But yep, some good stuff there. We've got a lot of good comments and questions coming in as well, guys. So keep those coming. We're going to start working through those now. So if you do want your question on the show, then get it in as early as you can. So we've got time to get to it. These guys have got opinions and they will share them. You've been warned. So get your questions in now. I'm going to award Tom Green winner of the Striker Light competition. They're totally cigarettes. That's exactly what Striker Light would be. I can see that 80s, early 90s advert now. Striker Light, £24 for 60 or whatever cigarettes cost. I don't know. I don't smoke, so I couldn't tell you. But Tom, you are the winner of that mini competition. What have you won? My respect. Worth great loads, I know. Stevie, we'll get to the first question I got here. Got this one kind of from a couple of guys here. So Robert is coming in going, do you think the owner should investigate Thelwell? And along a similar line, Philip coming in, question for the panel, do you want Thelwell sacked? He has been a lightning rod for criticism pretty much since he started over various things. The signing of Jermetti, the amount of money spent on him, the managerial search that's gone, appointing his son recently as well. The optics for him haven't been great. What's your kind of thoughts on Thelwell? Do you think he should keep his job? Do you think we should sack him? Do you think he's going to sack himself?
Yeah, I'd want to see him going yesterday, to be fair, or 2 weeks ago, whatever. I think he actually came out when Martin was still here and said, if Rangers sack Martin, they have to sack me. So what's he still doing there? His position's untenable, even based on that comment alone. He obviously thought he had more power than the Rangers fans, and the Rangers fans have basically forced Martin out. And it just really kind of, in real stark light, how bad a job he's done. He thought Martin, and he was so ballsy with it when he announced him. He was giving us all this chat about the type of football, dominant football, attacking football, and it was the polar opposite. Couldn't mean any different. So yeah, I would like to see Thelwell gone. Stuart too. I know that wasn't the question, but I'm not sure how he's qualified to be a CEO of Rangers. I know people say I was the CEO at Man United. He wasn't. He was the interim CEO at Man United. Who knows what he was doing before that? And that's been a club in decline for a long time. So he was part of that decline there. So yeah, I think the American owners have been, honest in the sense that they held their hands up there a couple of weeks ago and said, yeah, we've got it really wrong with Martin, which is good. But they need to go one step further and remove Thelwell and Stewart and get people in who actually know Scottish football. Like a Davy Weir, he's kind of on the scene just now. He, to me, would be a far more intelligent appointment in the director of football role. His contacts at Brighton, how many players did they sign from, Central America that you've never heard of before? And then a season later, they're going for like 70 million to Chelsea. Yeah, I would definitely get rid of Thelwell. I'm pretty sure Rangers fans are quite universal in their agreement that get rid of Russell Martin. And I think, I don't know, struggle to find maybe one or two people that would want him to stay. Mitch might surprise me. He might want to keep Thelwell. I don't know. He's a bit controversial sometimes, but no, I'd get him gone straight away.
No doubts there from Stevie. Billy, Stevie mentioned the video that Thelwell made in defence of Russell Martin. He called him one of the best coaches he'd ever worked with. Is that a red flag of the man's ability to Or just analyse anything?
I mean, with hindsight, you can say it was a red flag. The thing that really dispirits me about the whole thing with Thelwell and the process so far is we all saw this coming. It's not like Rangers supporters weren't looking, going, I don't know about this. He's a 25 game run, and like, how's this going to fit into Scottish football? And it's all very well saying you're going to draw the team out and spring on them, but what if they just decide not to come out? It's all stuff that as regular punters we knew was going to be a problem. I can understand them talking up the guy, because that's what you do. You talk up the new manager. For me, the red flags with Thelwell are other issues. They're things like hiring your son. I'm sorry, like, Mitch works in recruitment. I've worked in recruitment in the past. There's no way that like 100 CVs come in and they went through the process and went, guess what, Kevin, you'll never believe in 100 years who's at the top of the pile. That there's been some sort of process there where he has been brought in, and I'm sorry, I find it very difficult to believe he's the best guy. A 26-year-old guy who's followed his dad around a lot of his jobs is the best guy Rangers could get to do this job. And even if he was a good candidate, the optics on it would tell you, don't do it. And like, they've clearly gone, no, we're going to bring his son in. That's going to work. The Rangers fans will just have to swallow that. That, and I'm sorry to say it, but the Chermiti signing to me still just feels odd. He was getting offered around on loan to championship clubs before we bought him. He's a guy who hadn't scored in like 3 years. He's 8 million quid. He may turn out to be a solid signing. I'm not looking at him and going, we're selling him for, you saw Egeman and everyone immediately went, ooh, this guy could go up levels. This guy could go for money. We're not seeing that yet with Chermiti, and maybe he'll improve a lot, but he looks like a £2 or £3 million player we've paid £8 million for in Scotland. And there's just something about that allocation of resources that either just seems odd. I just can't. At the time, the very first pod we did about Chermiti, I was like, this doesn't make any sense looking at his background and his recent history. And it just doesn't. It's not a good use of money for Rangers. So I look at that. Is it a vanity project for Thelwell? Is he convinced he's got this gem at Everton that's going to come up here and tear it up? We're not a club that's about people's vanity projects, and we're not a club that's about getting your son a job. We're about, you come in and you get us the best players for the squad, and you get us the best appointees behind the scenes. And at the moment, I don't think he's done that. And I don't know if there's something odd going on, if he's panicked, if he's limited in terms of his abilities. But I initially was like, yeah, get rid of Russell Martin, and would have been prepared to give Thelwell a chance to settle in. But hiring his son and looking at how Chermiti's come through, massive reservations about this appointment, and I wouldn't be sad to see him go. And I wonder if Andrew Kavanagh, who has the air of a mafia don, is actually in the process of sounding out replacements. At that level, it could take a couple of months to get that done, but he would have to be looking at getting possible replacements in, and maybe Thelwell's there now because they need someone to do the job in the meantime.
Absolutely. Mitch, coming to you. I tried to play devil's advocate. That's
I'm there,
you slip there. I know.
I'm there.
I tried to play devil's advocate the other day when the topic of his son came up. In particular, the guys in the pod the other night were talking about him in reference to Davy Weir, who's obviously a very popular opponent. And I sort of made the point with Davy Weir, he's only got about 2 or 3 years experience in that type of role. Before he worked at Brighton, he looked after the players that were out on loan for them. And one of the reasons he's not at Brighton now is that they wanted to get someone in that had a bit more experience. Because I think the plan was that they were going to groom him for that position long term, but then their previous guy left. And that Robbie Thelwell, albeit has followed his father around for his career, but it's a career that's about almost a decade long now in player assessment, scouting, and light coaching. He started off, I think someone mentioned in the comments, he started off as, I think it was 17, 18. He first started working at Wolves, hired by his father. Worked part-time there, scouting while he was doing his degree in assessment and coaching. And then has sort of worked his way from coaching to player recruitment, to head of player recruitment, and obviously now to his role there. So there is some experience. Well, there is a degree of experience there, as I say, almost 10 years worth of experience. So he could be good at the job, which ultimately is the key thing. But does that matter because of, like Billy said, the optics of the hiring, and he should be getting better anyway.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm probably about to give Stevie an aneurysm any minute now. So Stevie, I'm putting that out there, mate. Like, I'm putting it out there before it happens. So just put the shotgun back underneath the desk for a wee minute. But Thelwell was tasked with a job in the summer. Root it and plant it. Root out the squad, plant the seeds of a new one. Kevin Thelwell done that in the summer. He ripped out what was needed to be ripped out. By all means, there's still one or two on the books that we all know we would like to get rid of, like Hot Dog Legs, Kieran Dowell. We'd all quite like him to be away. But you can't make everything happen in one window. And as supporters of this club for a lifetime, we have seen that agony in 4K for the last several years in a row. Kevin Thelwell replaced what was going out with players, the ones who have been purchased are players who are on lower money, but probably bigger upside on the flip side to it a few years down the road. Will there be duds in there? Absolutely, because in any club will have a couple of dud signings during the window. The Chermiti deal, for me, there was I think it was Opta. Doug, you'll know this better than me because obviously you live, eat, breathe, and sleep stats. I don't. I look at them and go, what a wonderful thing that looks like. Opta or something like that had ranked Chermiti as I think it was like number 6 or 7 of your top 10 players under the age of 21 for upside talent right now. Chermiti's not a bad player. He'd played over 40 games for Everton or around that 40 game mark in a struggling Everton team at a time where Everton were financially on their backside. That wasn't a healthy scenario for a young player to go in and thrive in the Premier League. Chermiti's came up here realistically because he needs games, but if we get him moving the way that he did, for example, he scored for Portugal's under-21s the other night, and it was a decent enough goal that he put away. If we get him moving and we get him firing the way that his developmental path should be on, that is a player that is quite comfortably going to go for 20, 25 million in a couple of years' time. Not every player is going to sell for big money 12 months after we purchase them. Some of them need the arm around them, the bit of cuddling in between that they don't get at a Premier League club. And that is where we should be at in our recruitment and our transfer cycle. Certain players like Sir Max Aidens, this time next year, he'll be in his contract year with Bournemouth. Getting him up here on loan was essentially a try before you buy for the long-term success for Tav. You know, that's a player that's arguably around about a £6-7 million player because Premier League tax. Bring him up here on loan for a year. If it doesn't work out, we are not committed to him in the summer. We can simply say, do you know what, Max, thanks for your contributions. It's not going to work out. You know that we spoke about maybe you coming up here permanently. That's not worked out. Cornelius, seasoned centre-back, internationalist. He's come in with the option to purchase. These are relatively risk-free signings. When you look at the loan signings, Magoma, I think he's one that I would have really liked to have had an option to buy. We don't know if there is one or not, but I think from all accounts there isn't one. But I think there's the only way we're going to know the true mark of how well that window's been is probably in 18 to 24 months' time, when the first of those purchase players start to leave the club for either for good money or poor money. Do I think that Coppin should have been kept in rather than Purdy coming into the regime? Absolutely. Because I think Coppin's got a much better eye for, or a much better network for young, up-and-coming talent. Yefty says that, Yefty's proof of that. Picked him up for £500,000. flipped him down the road for, what was that, £8 million or so we flipped him for, or £6 million. You don't find players like that without knowing what you're doing in that market. And I think that's where I think Coppin was asked to do things that he wasn't qualified to do last season. And that's not any disrespect to Coppin. That's more to do with that man is a scout, and his job was go find players, present players, and give us the reason why to go and get them. Again, there's going to be hits and misses in the discology for him, like there's always going to be for any director of football. Do I think that Thelwell's better at the transfer negotiations? I think so. In terms of the fees that we've commanded during the summer, let's be honest, under the old regime, would we have seen Yefty leave for £6 or £7 million, or would we have seen him leave for £2 or £3 million? And I think that's where Thelwell's reputation, particularly at Everton, it's only fair to judge somebody in their most recent job before they came here. He took them from a transfer bin fire of a club where they were constantly in the red financially for PSR, and then turned them over the course of 2.5 years into a benchmark of what Premier League clubs should be doing. Now, I would have said a lot of this window was functional signings, solid, not sexy. Some of these players are just in to be bodies for the course of this year. But the purchase players, there's a couple like Fernandes. I don't really think that's fair to judge him yet because Russell Martin, for some reason, never played him. Enciala, for example, again, not fair to really judge him. Again, I know he was signed by the previous regime. But these are young, talented players that we've not seen much of this season because the old manager was allergic to playing them. We don't know what the upside of these boys like. Even Mikey Moore, half the fan base has written off this 18-year-old wonder kid. But realistically, again, nobody knows what he was actually asked to do, and probably the player himself doesn't know what he was asked to do. So, very long-winded answer. I think he should be given at least until the summer, because I think that's a fair reflection on that calendar year mark to say, show me what the first couple of players that you ship out for. Show me what the return is on that player. And the proof's in the black and white then of what we sold them for.
Can I have a really quick right to reply?
I thought it was going to come in. I was going to see if you wanted to respond to some of those. That's a few.
Depends if I want to hear it, Stevie.
Really quickly. I mean, Mitch, you make a few fair points there, no doubt. But I would come back with the left back situation. One left back, 19-year-old, is for the full season ridiculous. RFC 72 in the comments, absolutely spot on. We've only got one contracted defender after the summer next year. That's really poor planning. And the boy up front, Chermiti, who spent 9-10 million, 3.5 million on Fernandes. Somebody in the comments, I think it was Shona, said 2 million for the Mikey Moore loan deal.
Yeah.
And we were talking about 15 million quid there. We could have had Cherny for maybe 8 million, Shankland on a free, Mulligan on a free. They're guys that are going to hit this league and hit it running. That to me would have been far more sensible, and it could have almost, no guaranteed success this season, but would have a far better chance with guys who know the league. I appreciate what Mitch is saying there about, resale value is very important going forward. But what's more important than that is competing to win the league. And right now, under Thelwell, we're not doing that.
I'm going to come back to you in the Tierney comment. Tierney was never coming here. In the summer, he's left to go to Turkey for 50 grand a week. We're not paying a winger 50 grand a week up here. And fair play to Tierney, because obviously he's got a right to go out there on, realistically, he's probably his final big contract of his career at 28, 29. Fair play to him. Do I think he would have ran through a wall for us? Absolutely. He showed us that last year. But we're probably going to offer him top end 30, 35 grand a week, in that TAV kind of bracket of wages. Another 15 grand a week for another guaranteed 2 to 3 years. It's a big difference when you're staring retirement down the barrel at the end of it. And again,
if you're helping a team qualify for the Champions League, but winning the league, you can build in bonuses. I think there's a happy medium between the two.
I think that he was wrong for the situation we've been left in at left back. Absolutely, I think that's criminal. And the fact that we never explored even free agency, to go and look at, there was guys like, and I don't know if he signed somewhere now, guys like Jamal Lewis were free. I'm not saying he would have set the world on fire and come up here and been, the Lord and Saviour left back, but that's an experienced Premier League level defender who, even if you offer him a 1+1 deal, where you say, look, you come up here, there's no obligation at the end of the season, you hit the world on fire in Europe and you hit the world on fire and win stuff here, you're bound to have options back down the road where you want to be. Or you come up the road, you really like it, and you see that we're building something special, there's another contract on the table at the end of the year, but there's no commitment for either side post the end of this season. And I think the fact that if the rumours are true that, within a couple of weeks of Thelwell coming in, that he kiboshed the Mulligan deal, I generally think there's an element of English snobbery there.
No. Really quickly. Who's the best signing that we've had? For me, it's Lyle Cameron, and it's not Thelwell signing. I think he's impressed more than anybody because he knows the league. And
if you ask me, bell to bell, who do I think will prove to be the best signing? Asgard. And I think Asgard's a player that inside 18 months will sell for 8 million plus.
I'll put that question to you, Billy. See if you had a chance to chat for a sec.
Sorry,
who
Billy.
do you think's our best signing?
No, interesting. I mean, Mitch is making some valid points here. However, I don't know if Mitch is the guy that's been selling us players, because he does a great job. But I do recall it's less than 2 months ago we were on a pod and Mitch was predicting we'd be selling Oscar Cortez for 10 to 20 million within 1 to 2 years. Now we might, but given that he's at Sporting Gijón in the Segunda Liga just now, I'm going to say that's optimistic. With Chermiti, this will be really interesting, though. I take your point, right? All the Opta stats are saying he's in the top 10. That's where this data model from the 49ers is going to be interesting, because I'm seeing nothing that tells me he's going to be a £24 million player within 1 to 2 years. It's only about 20 games, I think, he played for Everton, and the only goal he scored in the last 3 years was in an under-21 Everton game, in a cup game. So these Opta stats, see if it turns out they're right and this is a Moneyball situation, I'll be delighted. But I can only do what most Rangers fans are doing just now, which is we've looked at the start of the season and everything we've kind of sucked our teeth and gone, not sure about that, to we've turned out to be right. So the fact that we were right to be sceptical about Russell Martin, we were right to be sceptical about a lot of the signings, we were right to be sceptical about even Thelwell. I'm going to say that Chermiti, let's give him a chance. But at the moment, I'm not seeing anything that's making me think he is a £24 million player waiting to be unveiled. And no one will be more delighted if he is. And then if he is, great, Opta on it. But if he's in that top 10 for Opta, and that's such a great source of data, why did no one else pick him up? 8 million in England's nothing. If this guy's the great hidden gem, why is he in Scotland for 8 million? And the one other thing I would say, sorry, Mitch, you're getting a bit of a kick in here, but that's what you're on for. But on Thelwell, I take your point that he did make Everton a bit of a benchmark in terms of how an EPL club should function. But the remit at Everton is survival. The remit at Rangers, like Stevie said, is winning. And survival isn't going to be good enough. And he might have brought money in, but like Stevie said, he splashed a lot of money in not very impressive ways. When, you talked about the likes of Mulligan, Penrice, people that we could have brought in who would have done a job and we could have built on. So if he's brought the money in, great. But if we're just going to spend it on the likes of Manuel Fernandes and people are not getting the team, that makes me worry. I will take your point totally that I think all the players get a clean slate because Russell Martin has bamboozled them. And I think you might be onto something with Asgard. I think he might be a player in the making. And a lot of them just look constipated, football-wise, because of Russell Martin. So I'm prepared. Fernandes, the whole lot of them get a clean slate. But on Thelwell, just that £8 million. £8 million doesn't buy you much in Scotland. But it should buy you someone with a bit of pedigree, not a striker who hasn't scored in 3 years. And that for me, Opta can prove me wrong, but that for me is the big red flag. I've
got the right to reply as Stevie invoked.
No, you don't, because you've talked too much and we've got questions to get to, so I'm kiboshing you. I'm sorry. Billy, do you speak Spanish? Someone in the comments wants to know if you speak Spanish.
Yeah, only when I look it up on Wiki to check where Hehong is.
Always a good one. Always a good one. There was a question as well about whether Rangers have ever had a Chinese player. Sorry, I don't have it there. Whoever asked it, but someone asked if Rangers have ever had a Chinese player before. Not to my knowledge. I had a quick look on Transfer Market and I didn't see anyone there, so I don't think we have. So a potential first could come along with that. We had a potential first in our initial signing. Nasa Jiga, who came in, was our first ever player from Burkina Faso, so we had our first ever in the first window. We've had 8 Australians, as Mitch hinted there, from close by, and I think that is the closest looking at the list here. So no Chinese players to date, so that could be an exciting one to come through. Quickly hitting this question here from Philip, Jamal Lewis, no brainer. Does he have a club yet? No, as far as Transfer Market says, he doesn't have a club yet. However, I've been banging this drum from the beginning. I don't think he's a no-brainer at all because he was injured for 4 months of the season last season, which to me is not a player we need to be signing because that just screams of all of the trouble we've had with numerous players recently. I'd rather just probably play Max Adams and hope he improves. Okay, next question I've got here that I think is a good topical one. One of the other things that's been talked about, obviously, we touched on the potential delay in Muscat coming to the club, and one of the possibilities that's been mooted to mitigate that is Neil McCann coming in to be an interim manager and then becoming part of the coaching team afterwards. Mick here has said, does Muscat need a coach who knows the league like McCann or someone else, or should he have his own team, which has a high possibility of no homegrown coaches? I mean, I'll chuck my 2 cents in there. I think any manager should always have local knowledge. Even if you are from that area, I think having another person there that has local knowledge is always a plus in your coaching side, and particularly from someone coming in from abroad, from another country. I think having that local knowledge is really important, just really useful, both in terms of like just the knowledge of your league and your team and everything else, but also to help you get to know your players and get to know your club that you're joining and all that stuff. Obviously, Muscat has been a Rangers player before, and indeed was a Rangers player with Neil McCann during the McLeish treble. But that was a long time ago, and obviously Rangers are a different club today, unfortunately, than we were then. So there are new things for him to learn, and Neil McCann obviously has been around Scottish football his entire life, and so will be able to help with that. So I think that to me would be a really astute way to go about things. What's your thoughts on that, Stevie?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, 100%. I'd like to see McCann involved. I say this every Thursday night. I want to see Kevin Thompson involved. Guys that have got like previous with the club, have that winning mentality, linked to Walter Smith as well. I know McCann never played under him, but Kevin Thompson played under him. Spoke amazingly. We did a pod about Walter when the statue got unveiled a while back, and Kevin Thompson was on it, and his insights were brilliant. He told us stuff about Walter, how just his aura. So maybe he's got a bit of that about him, having like worked with him and done really well under him. I'd like to see that that involvement, and it kind of maintains the standards. You look back at Advocate, I'm sure he got John Gregg involved in the training field as well. Just reminding players, what this really means, but also offering an insight. Kevin Thompson, I know it's a Celtic Hearts, but he won the league. He's had 1 season as a manager and he won the league with him. So he's obviously got a bit about him. Worked at the club before a couple of times. So yeah, I think that's vital. You need somebody who knows the league. The kind of atmosphere and everything else about it is really important. But I think Muscat, he seems like a pragmatic sort of guy. So I think he will definitely have 1 or 2 on there. And every interview I've seen with him, he really pushes the kind of players taking ownership and taking responsibility, which again we've lacked so much on the pitch for far too long. And I think having guys like Thompson or Neil McCann there, that will help kind of instill it, because these guys know what it takes to get it over the line. So yeah, really hope to see that. And if he is McCann for a month or so, so be it. I think at the ones that were there last season, he to me was the most kind of analytical. He seemed to come across really well, even when he's on RTV or whatever. he seems to offer really good insights. So yeah, I'd be quite happy with Neil McCann there.
Absolutely. So I've got about 5-6 minutes left. I want to try and get through the last of these questions, so I'm just going to put a question per person. If you find you have a really strong opinion, let me know. I'll let you jump in, but I'm going to go one for one to get through these so that everyone gets their question out. So Billy, I'm going to put Daniel's question to you. Do you think the fans will give Muscat enough time to make his mark? He's obviously got a unique style of play, which will potentially take a bit of time to settle in. So do you think he'll get that?
Well, just before I answer that, just saying we have actually got a Chinese player at Rangers just now in Li Mengwen, who signed for the ladies in September. So I don't know how many players we've had maybe from different countries, but I know that was a recent signing. Muscat getting the time, it's almost like the Amarim thing of like, take the job now when it's available. You haven't had pre-season. They're not your players. You've got unhappy fans. You've got stressed out players who've been bamboozled by Russell Martin's tactical master plan. I'm hoping it's not a poison chalice, and we do need. I mean, Kevin Muscat was quite the rogue on the football field, would be one way of putting it. And I think we are going to need. We're going to need someone really strong and someone who can drag the club up by its bootstraps, because he is taking on a lot of things. We say this all the time. We understand the circumstances. We'll give the manager time, and everyone knows what the deal is. Reality is, if he doesn't have an impressive season, he will have a clock running at the start of next season, unfortunately. So I hope we give him time. I was one that thought, this isn't a popular view, but I thought Philippe Clement wasn't very well treated. I didn't think he was supported. I think he's the guy that if we had Philippe Clement coming in fresh with the backing the 49ers had, I'd been very excited. I just hope we're not giving a good manager, like I say, sending him into a knife fight with one hand behind his back. I hope we give him time. But I've never known the Rangers support to be so disenchanted and so ready to grumble. And a lot of that's modern life and social media and everything, but a lot of it's just what we've had to watch the last while. So will we? I'm not sure. So I really hope he gets off to a decent start.
Absolutely. Mitch, question I'm going to put to you here. Do you think that we'll see Rangers moving into the Asian market with Muscat under the helm? It's an area of the world that we've not really, I think, gone into much, certainly in recent history. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we have had a fistful of Australians, but certainly the Japanese, Chinese, those areas are not, Korea maybe, those are areas we've not really gone to. Do you think we'll see that?
I think there's a chance, but I don't see it being in January, maybe more in the summer. I think January will be, maybe we'll see a couple of bodies coming in for the usual injuries that kick off, any suspensions, any leavers, anything like that in between. But I think the remit from a transfer model, Thelwell and Co have said it already, was functional. It was just about getting known quantities of bodies in over the course of this season. So I think, is there a chance? There's always a chance. Would it be? I think the 8 players coming from the Asian market are sadly always going to be compared with players from across the way that have come in. And I think you look at there's a big centre back that plays for, I think it's Munich, who was signed from the Korean League. And he's now rumoured to be worth something like 18 to 20 million pound or something, and he's a big 6-footer. It's Kim something or other. Doug, you'll know his name better than me, because Doug knows these things. Like, he's got them just written up the sleeve of his big cardigan. But I think, it's one of these where it's a market that should we explore? Absolutely, but I always think, and it's not Scottish snobbery before I'm accused of it in the chat. I think there's always an air of caution when it comes to signing players from, the Asian markets, even into the Australian markets and places like that, where you go domestically, most of these players will be okay. But when you take it up to the next level of either the Europa League or into the Champions League, all being well, that's where the big question mark obviously will always lie, because, the Asian Champions League and the European Champions League are two different levels of quality. But again, I don't rule it out. Right players and right profiles. There we go. Thank you very much, Gordy, in the chat there for Kim Young May. I knew Gordy would have my back there in the chat. See, if Doug didn't know, Gordy would know. There's definitely gems out there. It's like certain places where you look at per head of population by proxy, there's going to be some good gems in the market. You just need to find them.
Absolutely, and hopefully, that could be part of the test for Thelwell coming up. Okay, moving forward, Stevie, for yourself, I've got a question here from Ronald. Obviously, one of the criticisms that Russell Martin was coming under was playing Moore ahead of our own Finlay Curtis. Do you think we'll get to see more of Curtis potentially under the new manager?
I really hope so. To me, it's not even a contest. I mean, Curtis, pretty much every time he played this season, he impressed. He's got that real bite, real aggression about him, and he's got an end product. And he's scored a couple of really brilliant goals outside the area. He's the type of kid, when he strikes a ball, it stays hit. Do you know what I mean? It keeps going. And I think he plays that way as well. All action, just never stops. Really good talent, and still only 18. That's the guy I want to see Rangers develop. No Mikey Moore. I know a lot of people like Mitch there saying he's a wonder kid. Maybe he is, but to me it looks like a wonder kid at 5-a-sides or England under-19s, not for Glasgow Rangers. Whereas Curtis has been there his whole life. He's grown up a Rangers fan. He knows exactly what it takes, and he's got the talent. So yeah, I'd love to see him starting more. If Moore comes good, great. If he does, contributes, brilliant. But so far, I've not seen a single end product for Moore, whereas Curtis delivers almost every time. And I think the most important thing, which will kind of fall in line with what Muscat's mentioning about he'll take, what was it? An aggression. It was something like desire over talent or character over talent. And that's really important. And I think Curtis will fall into that. So for me, Muscat getting appointed is a great thing for Finlay Curtis.
See, just to echo Stevie's point, there's an old saying, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Absolutely, and hopefully we'll get to see more of the hard work of Finlay Curtis coming up. Moving on to yourself, Billy. Got a question from Colin asking, what benchmarks should Muscat be judged against in his first season? Trophies, style of play, Europe. What do you think are going to be the key things? Season one or season 3/4 as it will be.
It's almost like a microcosm of what my last question was in terms of what he's up against. How's he going to be judged? If he comes in the 22nd of November and we're 4 games into Europa League, I think it'd be harsh to judge him in Europe. Trophies, we could be out of 3 effectively. So we've got the Scottish Cup. And I mean, you're now asking a manager to go in and win a cup with not his players who will have played under 2 different management teams, maybe 3 different managers by the time he gets a hold of them. Honestly, I think if this, I always try and play the game of if I'm not totally sure on the answer, I step back and imagine it was some other club that I just didn't care about and I was just looking at it. And I would say if it was another club, actually, style of play, that's going to be the thing. Style of play might win us a cup, but wouldn't we? I mean, what would anybody on here give for just a style of play? Just turning up and going, right, the ball's with this player, we know where it's going, we know what's going to happen, we're on the attack, it's going to end in a shot or a corner or something. So as much as Rangers is all about winning, and as much as we'd love to be in a league title race and win the Scottish Cup, and that could be a big thing by the end of the season, if you're asking him to come in with not his players and not his pre-season and in the middle of this sort of like a bin fire, I think seeing him embed a style of play and actually liberating the players, because I think Stevie and Mitch, you both touched on this, they are better players than they've shown. What we don't know is how good they can be because they've been straitjacketed by Russell Martin. So I would like to go back to what happened in the Michael Beale, Steven Gerrard era, and you actually see players improving week on week or month on month. If we see that, if we see a style of play, what I would like to do is get to the end of a season with Kevin Muscat giving us hope And then instead of doing what we did to Philip Clement, I have to disagree with Dean, who was posting earlier. Instead of pulling the rug out from him and going, wow, you almost won us the league with the players who got the last manager the sack. Right, let's see how you do with the depleted squad. Instead of doing that, if Muscat gets a style of playing and gives us promise, back him, and then let's see what he can do next season.
Absolutely, some good points there. So we've just got 3 questions left. We've got one from Curry, Billy, and Dean still to come. Those will be our last ones this night, guys, as we are slightly over time now, but we'll get those last 3 in. So, Mitch, I'm going to give you Curry's question, which is it down to the players to prove it was the manager's fault that we have been so poor?
Yes. It's up to the players to pull this
Perfect. Good.
Like,
That's the end of it.
Genuinely, and I'm not going to over-expand on it, but there's been so much discontent. Don't you start with me, Douglas. Telling you, you'll be over my knee before this pod's done. But genuinely, there's been so much discontent over Russell Martin coming in. We had Raskingate, we had apparently senior players falling out with Martin, we had a whole load of myriad, depending on how much, as always with the media, there's probably 10% truth, 90% nonsense in what comes out of it. It's up to the players to say it's day one again. And it's almost like going back to school after summer. Go back to school, get the squad moving, style of play, don't care. Put ball in net, keep ball out net. That's all I want to see for the first few games. Get the results going, get the wins moving, and get the atmosphere inside the stadium away from the sea of negativity to being a place that we all enjoy going on a Saturday and a Sunday.
Absolutely nice and straightforward, hopefully. Just got a question here from Billy. I'll quickly field this one before we go on to the last one, which says, could Stephen Davis come in? Absolutely he could. Again, he's another guy like Neil McCann that's obviously been around the club in recent times. No spots what, he was an absolutely top quality player, consummate professional, loads of experience. So I've no reason to believe that he wouldn't be a really good coach as part of a team. So he could definitely be someone that comes in. People have talked about Kevin Thompson as well. I think Stevie mentioned him. Lots of players like that I think are options that could come in. And hopefully we will see 1 or 2 names like that. So final question for this evening, which lands with you, Stevie, is from Dean. He sort of says, when Martin came in, he talked about wanting to play a style of football similar to how Muscat sets up his teams. Shouldn't that mean we have to have players that can play that way? Do you think, from what you know of sort of Muscat style play, do you think the squad we've got currently is capable of delivering that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's enough quality there. This guy's far more organised, far more pragmatic than Russell Martin will ever be. But I think, as the guys have kind of mentioned it before, there's a lot of damage being done by Russell Martin to that squad. So he's not only got to kind of implement his way of playing, he's also got to fix what Martin has basically done wrong. So it's a huge undertaking. But yeah, I've watched some of the highlights and some of the games of his teams, and he's definitely more organised. There's a cohesion for the defence to midfield to the attack. They play with a purpose, and that's the most important thing. Russell Martin's Rangers have no tempo and no purpose. Kevin Muscat's teams have got purpose and they've got organisation, they've got tempo, which I think Rangers really need just now. So it's going to take a fair bit of time to implement it. But as long as we see progress towards the end of the season, and we'll see improvements and hopefully win a cup, then yeah, I think we're on to a winner, I hope. I'm sure we all do. But yeah, I think there's enough there with the squad. They'll have to make tweaks. Like Mitch said, I don't think it'll be January because January's a really difficult month to do business in. But yeah, I think there's enough there. It's a better squad now than what Clement had at the start of last season. As Billy was saying there, it was really ripped from under him. So yeah, we'll see. But fingers crossed, right? What else can you do?
Absolutely. On to a winner. That's a great point to finish this evening on, I think. I'll go around and get the last word from everyone and a wee prediction of score for the weekend. So first of all, straight back to you, Stevie. Thanks for all your points tonight and answering questions. What's your thoughts? What's going to be the score of the weekend?
Thanks, mate. It's been always a pleasure, never a chore. Last time you asked me this, it was Falkirk away, and I predicted 1 each. So I think it might be something similar. I get we're all rearing to go, but given how poor the season has been to date, interim managers like Stevie Smith, they don't always get a reaction. So it might be a close game. Maybe sneak a win, maybe 2-1. I'll try and be optimistic. Go with 2-1 Rangers.
Billy, thanks for yourself and your pyjamas for another great pod. What's your thoughts on the score at the weekend?
Well, just before giving you a prediction, to address that, how come I get all the grief for fashion choices, especially Rangers fashion choices? Chris was hosting last night, drinking out a Spider-Man mug that you could have put 24 red roses in. Nobody says a thing. I wear a Rangers top. Right? It's the Noel Edmonds shirt that started this. It's just a pile-on now. With that said, I'm kind of the same thinker as Stevie. Like, it feels like a 1-1. I'd love to see Stevie Smith just unshackle the players, simplify things, and by dint of us having better quality players, we get a better performance and we win. I feel like these things can be slow to turn round, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a kind of spotty 1-1.
Spotty 1-1. And Mitch, yourself, anything more positive for your prediction?
I'm going wild here. Players are going to have the handbrake off because they've had it kept simple this week. 3-1. And committed to get off the mark. Just so I can text Stevie and say, last word's normally off at the end of it.
Absolutely. If it makes you feel better, if it makes you feel better, Billy, Smoke has just described my cardigan as the Michael Beale cardigan. I don't think anything more offensive could possibly be labelled at someone about their clothing items. So it's not just you. It's okay.
See the
thank you.
By the way, well, Billy mentioned earlier on that it's no pyjamas that he's wearing, but he's not clarified whether or not he's been sitting there as Winnie the Pooh the whole pod here, like whether that's just the top that he's wearing.
See, we could have ended the pod.
Once a bear, always a bear.
Anyway, I'm going to bring things to an end at that point. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this evening. Thanks for all your questions and all your comments. Loads of great chat going on there, as always, from the guys, regular viewers that are there, and some new names as well. So thank you very much for tuning in. If you are new and you're not subscribed, then please hit that subscribe button. You can also hit on the notification bell, and that will give you notifications every time we go live, which, as I said earlier, is pretty much every day at this point. 5 nights a week, certainly, or 4 nights a week and one afternoon for the new show, which will be on tomorrow at 12. We'll wrap up the week's news, and then we're usually live pre and post match as well. Leaves me just to say thank you to the guys, thank you to everyone in the comments, thank you for me. I've been Doug, you've been watching the Rangers Journal, and remember that every night is a Rangers Journal night. Cheers.